I want you to imagine that you're the greatest playwright in ancient Greece.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right. You survive wars, you write these absolute masterpieces that will be studied for, like, millennia, and then you are killed because an eagle mistakes your bald head for a rock.
Oh, man.
And it just drops a tortoise right on it.
It's the ultimate cosmic joke. And the crazy part is it's a completely true story.
It really is. So today, for this deep dive, we are opening up one of the internet's most, I don't know, mesmerizing but definitely morbid rabbit holes.
Oh, absolutely.
We're looking at a single, incredibly dense Wikipedia page, and it's literally just titled Lists of Unusual Deaths.
Just right to the point.
Yeah. It's this enormous index covering weird, highly specific, just bizarre fatalities from antiquity all the way up to the modern era.
And, it even includes animal deaths and these incredibly granular subcategories.
Yeah, exactly. But our mission today for you, the listener, isn't just to, like, gawk at the macabre. We want to understand what humanity's obsessive categorization of these weird fatalities actually tells us. Like, what does this say about our relationship with our own mortality?
Because fundamentally, cataloging these extremely rare circumstances, it's a coping mechanism.
Right.
Death is the ultimate unknown, right? It's the one thing we absolutely cannot control, no matter what we do.
Yeah, 100%.
But by taking the sheer chaotic nature of mortality and turning it into this hyper-organized listicle, sorting it by century or by cause or by biological stage, we attempt to exert some semblance of control over it.
We're telling ourselves that if we can index the darkness, maybe we can manage it.
Exactly. We tame it with paperwork.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because we are basically building a filing cabinet for the Grim Reaper here.
That's a great way to put it.
And looking at the historical section of this source, I mean, it really reads like an ancient version of the movie Final Destination, where fate just finds the most highly specific, almost comical loophole to get somebody. Take Aeschylus, the Greek playwright, with the tortoise we just talked about.
Right.
That story is so iconic, it echoes through centuries of literature. The source notes it was illustrated in the 15th century Florentine picture chronicle by Boccio Baldini.
Which is centuries later.
Exactly. And it was even dissected in a 1937 journal article by Ursula Hoff called Meditation in Solitude.
Wow.
So my question is, do we actually remember these specific people more for their lives? Or because the sheer irony of a falling tortoise hijacked their entire historical legacy?
That's a fascinating point. What's happening here is that the sheer absurdity of the event ensures its survival in the historical record. I mean, Aeschylus is a freak accident. But as the list brings us through other historical eras, we see different psychological reactions.
Like what?
Well, take Frederick Barbarossa in the 12th century.
Okay.
He was a Holy Roman Emperor, just a massive, larger-than-life military leader, and he died by drowning in a river that was reportedly waist-deep.
Which is just, I mean, that is an incredibly anticlimactic way for an emperor to go.
It's totally anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And that anticlimax is exactly why his death spawned all these enduring legends. People started whispering that he was actually still alive, just sleeping in a mountain cave.
Oh, right, like a King Arthur kind of myth.
Precisely. Because when a major figure dies suddenly in such bizarre or even mundane circumstances, it creates this psychological vacuum. The human mind it struggles to process that someone of such immense power could be taken out by shallow water.
It just doesn't compute.
Right. So denial sets in. Myth is born. The legend is society's way of rejecting an ending that just doesn't match the grand narrative of the person's life.
We rewrite the script because the reality is just too jarring.
Exactly.
But we see a totally different kind of jarring reality when we hit the 20th century with Franz Reichelt.
Ah, the Flying Tailor.
Yeah, the Flying Tailor. He literally jumped off the Eiffel Tower testing an early wearable parachute suit. And, well, it failed.
Right. And Reichelt represents another recurring theme in this list, which is the intersection of hubris, innovation, and, well, gravity.
Yeah, gravity always wins.
It really does. Unlike Aeschylus, whose death was a pure freak accident from the sky, Reichelt's death was a spectacular, very public collision between human ambition and the unforgiving laws of physics.
Which kind of transitions us nicely because the narrative totally shifts as we move from those historical legends into the modern era.
It does, yeah.
We stop getting these grand mythical stories of emperors and inventors, and the page's taxonomy just sort of fractures into these bizarrely specific, almost mundane sublists.
Oh, the sublists are wild.
I mean, just look at some of these categories in the source. Death by coconut,
Hmm.
death by vending machine, death from laughter, autoerotic fatality, spontaneous human combustion.
It's quite a variety.
And then we get to modern technology, right? There's literally a list of selfie-related injuries and deaths.
It's a stark transition.
Yeah.
The focus really zooms in on the hazards of our immediate everyday environment.
But wait, I'm struggling with this a bit.
Okay, why?
Well, why do we need an entirely separate Wikipedia classification for death by vending machine or death by coconut? Like, isn't a falling coconut really just blunt force trauma?
Technically, yes.
So are we getting overly obsessed with the specifics, or is this page trying to tell us we're just getting clumsier as a species?
No, it's not about being clumsy. Think about your daily routine. You probably walked past a vending machine today, right?
Yeah, in the lobby.
And you might have taken a selfie recently. We interact with these mundane objects constantly, with zero expectation of danger. They are the absolute definition of modern safety and convenience.
Right, they're invisible to us.
Exactly. So when an object that mundane becomes an instrument of death, it shatters our illusion of security.
Oh, I see. It reminds you that gravity and mass are always in play, even in the break room.
Precisely. A coconut is just a piece of fruit, right? Until gravity turns it into a projectile. These hyper-specific lists mirror our modern anxieties.
Yeah.
Because despite all our societal safeguards, we are still fragile biological creatures navigating a very physical world.
But what about the entertainment aspect of all this?
The entertainment aspect.
Yeah, because the text points out that as a culture, we consume these bizarre deaths as media.
Oh, right, of course.
We have the Darwin Awards, we have that show, 1,000 Ways to Die, and even stupid deaths from the show Horrible Histories.
Yeah, it's whole genre.
So if hearing that a vending machine can crush me makes me anxious, how does laughing at a Darwin Award winner make me feel safer? Doesn't that just feed the anxiety?
I'd actually argue the exact opposite. It acts as a pressure valve for that anxiety.
Really? How so?
Psychologically, consuming these stories in a comedic or awarding format provides a vital sense of distance. When you listen to a story about someone, say, shaking a vending machine until it tips over on them, you are participating in a form of defensive distancing.
Defensive distancing.
Yeah, you laugh to draw a firm line between yourself and the victim.
Oh, okay. So I tell myself, well, I would never violently shake a massive heavy machine, therefore I am safe.
That is the exact mechanism. We categorize it as a stupid death to attribute the bizarre event to a personal failing of the victim.
Wow.
Because it is so much easier to believe someone died because they were foolish than to accept the terrifying truth, which is that the universe is random and cruel and fatal accidents can happen to anyone at any time.
That makes total sense. We are constantly trying to put up mental walls to protect ourselves.
We absolutely are.
But here's where it gets really interesting and honestly a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
Because once we move past the causes of these unusual deaths, the falling horses and the vending machines, this Wikipedia page just drops down into a massive, incredibly dense navigational index. And it's simply titled Death.
The clinical side of it.
Exactly. It outlines the entire biological and clinical infrastructure of mortality. It contrasts the chaos of how people die with this intensely rigid scientific precision of what happens next.
It's a profound pivot in the source material. We transition from the unpredictable events of life into the deeply predictable biological reality of the dying process itself.
And reading it, it's honestly like reading a highly programmed reverse puberty itinerary.
Reverse puberty. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Well, let's unpack that, because with puberty, your body runs this incredibly complex hormonal script to build you up, right? It changes you over years.
Right, it's constructive.
But according to this index, the moment the heart stops, a brand new chemical script fires up to tear you down. And it is just as rigid and scheduled as the one that built you.
That is a brilliant analogy, actually, because the biological teardown is so systematic. The text outlines the stages under after death. First, you have pallor mortis.
Which is what exactly?
That's the immediate paleness that sets in as blood stops circulating. It happens very quickly. Then you move into algor mortis, which is the steady drop in body temperature as you slowly acclimate to the room temperature.
Because algor means cold, right?
Yes, exactly. Followed by livor mortis. That's where gravity really takes over and the stagnant blood begins to pool at the lowest points of the body. It creates this purplish discoloration.
Which is, yeah, pretty grim.
It is. And then, of course, there's rigor mortis, the famous stiffening of the muscles caused by chemical changes in the tissue.
Right.
It is a strict itinerary leading eventually, as the page lists, to putrefaction and skeletonization.
And what's wild to me is that this clinical terminology goes all the way down to the microscopic level. Like,
Hey.
the index lists different types of cellular death, which I had no idea were so deeply
Oh,
categorized.
the cellular level is fascinating.
Yeah, like you have apoptosis,
Yeah.
which the source describes as programmed cell death.
Yeah, the word apoptosis actually comes from ancient Greek. It means falling off, like
Yeah.
leaves falling from a tree in autumn.
Oh, wow, I like that.
Yeah, it's poetic. It's the body's tidy, intentional way of sweeping up old or damaged cells without causing any inflammation.
But then you contrast that with necrosis.
Right. Necrosis is the messy, explosive cell death that's caused by external trauma or infection or lack of blood supply. It causes surrounding inflammation. It's chaotic.
And then there's an even more obscure term listed in there, autoschisis,
Autoschisis.
which literally translates to self-splitting. It's a specific type of cell death where the cell essentially cuts itself in half. The text mentions it's often observed in cancer treatment.
It just sounds like a dark magic spell, honestly. Self-splitting.
It really does. But what really caught my eye in this medical section wasn't just the neat categories, it was the anomalies.
Ah, right. Biology doesn't always read the textbook.
Exactly. Because despite all those rigid Latin terms and predictable stages, biology is messy. The body doesn't always cooperate with the schedule.
It definitely doesn't.
The list covers phenomena like the Lazarus sign, which, according to the source, is a reflex movement in brain-dead patients where their arms might briefly raise up and cross over their chest.
It's just electrical impulses misfiring in the spinal cord, but...
But you can imagine how terrifying that would be to witness.
Oh, absolutely. It would look like they were waking up.
Yeah. And then there's Lazarus syndrome, where blood circulation just spontaneously returns after CPR has been completely stopped.
Which is incredibly rare, but it happens.
And then there are incredibly unsettling terms on this list, like coffin birth.
Yeah, that one is, well, it sounds like horror fiction, but it's a purely mechanical, biological process.
How does that even work?
Historically, if a pregnant woman passed away, the gases building up inside her abdomen during putrefaction could literally force the fetus out of the body post-mortem.
Oh, wow.
It's grim, really grim. But it highlights how the physics and chemistry of the body continue to operate long after consciousness is actually gone.
And speaking of consciousness being gone, this index draws a massive distinction between clinical death and brain death.
Yes, that's a very important modern distinction,
It even introduces the concept of the beating heart cadaver.
which brings up a huge philosophical and medical gray area. A beating heart cadaver is a human body that is entirely brain dead, meaning all neurological function has irreversibly ceased. But the heart is kept beating artificially, usually on a ventilator.
To preserve organs for donation,
Right,
right?
exactly, to keep the organs viable.
So the line between life and death isn't just a simple switch that flips from on to off.
Far from it. It's a fading gradient.
A gradient.
Yes, the sheer volume of this specialized medical vocabulary exists because human technology has advanced to a point where we can literally pause the dying process.
Wow, we can literally pause it.
We can. We need terms like clinical death, which is when the heart stops, versus brain death, because a stopped heart can often be restarted today, whereas brain death is absolute. Society requires this immense glossary just to draw a sharp legal and ethical line in what is actually a very, very murky biological transition.
And that murky transition requires a staggering amount of administration. Which really brings us to the final major theme of this source text.
The societal aftermath.
Exactly. Because once biology finally gives out and the process actually concludes, society has to step in to deal with the aftermath. And the human engineering surrounding death is just vast.
It is an entire industry, an entire ecosystem. Death isn't just a biological conclusion, right? It is a massive societal undertaking.
I was absolutely blown away by the sheer volume of niche terms for body disposal on this list.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
most of us just think of burial or cremation. there.
Standard auctions,
But under the Disposal and Preservation Index, it lists sky burial.
which is a fascinating practice.
It really is. The source notes it's often practiced in Tibet, where a body is left on a mountaintop to decompose naturally or be eaten by scavenging birds, just returning the nutrients directly to the earth.
It's an ecologically deeply integrated method. It treats the body as part of the natural cycle.
But then the list swings to the extreme opposite end of the technological spectrum.
Right into the laboratory.
Right. We have things like premation and resumation. These sound like concepts from a sci-fi novel.
They do sound sci-fi, but they are very real emerging technologies.
Can you explain premation?
Sure, premation involves freeze-drying a human body using liquid nitrogen until it is completely brittle, and then It's vibrated until it shatters into a fine organic dust.
Wow, just vibrated into dust.
Exactly. And then resomation, on the other hand, is water cremation. It uses alkaline hydrolysis.
Alkaline hydrolysis.
Yeah, it's a mix of water, heat, and specific chemicals to rapidly dissolve the body's tissues. It leaves only the bones, which are then crushed to ash.
It's the ultimate dust to dust, but executed with, like, advanced chemistry.
Exactly. And then, of course, on the preservation side, you have cryopreservation, freezing the body in hopes of future revival and plastination.
Right, replacing bodily fluids with polymers to perfectly preserve the anatomy, like you see in those museum exhibits.
Yes. But what's crucial to notice here is the shift in agency.
What do you mean?
Well, think about the unusual deaths at the beginning of our deep dive. With the falling tortoise or the vending machine, humanity was at the mercy of chaotic, unpredictable forces.
Right, totally helpless.
But with premation, resomation, and plastination, humanity is reasserting control. We dictate the exact chemical and physical terms of how the body breaks down.
Oh, I see. We are getting the last word.
Precisely. We take control back.
And that desire for control, it bleeds right out of the mortuary and into our legal and political systems. The societal concepts listed in this index are mind-bending, like, for example, the micromort.
Oh, the micromort is a fascinating conceptual tool.
Yeah, the text defines it as a unit of risk. It's defined as a 1 in a million chance of death.
Right. Statisticians and actuaries use it to quantify and compare the danger of everyday activities.
So skydiving might cost you 8 or 9 micromorts, while just like walking down the stairs might just be a fraction of 1.
Exactly. By putting a strict mathematical value on the probability of dying, we take the paralyzing fear of the unknown and we turn it into a manageable spreadsheet.
We turn death into a spreadsheet.
We really do.
And we also see societal structures trying to manage the causes of death, like karoshi.
The Japanese term.
Yeah, translating literally to overwork death, where occupational stress triggers fatal heart attacks or strokes. The fact that a society needs a specific legal term for dying at your desk, I mean, it shows how deeply intertwined modern economics and mortality have become.
And our legal system is forced to litigate all of this too. The index references the death-qualified jury.
What's that?
It's a specific legal protocol in the United States where jurors in capital cases are heavily screened to ensure they are legally and morally capable of imposing the death penalty.
It's society institutionalizing the taking of a life.
Exactly. Which perfectly aligns with the concept of necropolitics.
Yeah.
It's another term found in this massive web of information.
Necropolitics.
Yeah, it's a philosophical theory about how ultimate political power is essentially the power to dictate who lives and who must die.
Yeah.
Whether that's through warfare or healthcare access or capital punishment.
Yeah.
Society is constantly administering mortality.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I mean, we have legal screenings for juries. We have mathematical metrics like micromorts to tell us if our commute is too dangerous.
Right.
And completely different, highly technological ways to dispose of a body. It feels like we are actively trying to tame the terrifying unpredictability of mortality by just burying it in paperwork.
That's exactly what we're doing. If we can measure it, if we can legislate it and build infrastructure around it, it feels less like a looming monster in the dark and more like a municipal hazard.
Like fixing a pothole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We maintain a sense of agency over the aftermath, even if we couldn't control the unusual death that kicked off the whole process.
It is honestly incredible to look at it all laid out like this.
It really gives you a new perspective.
It does. I mean, we started this deep dive looking at a Wikipedia page titled Lists of Unusual Deaths. And it felt like we were just going to read morbid trivia about falling tortoises and malfunctioning vending machines.
Which is how most people probably read that page.
Right. But stepping back to view the whole picture, the whole index, it serves a profound purpose. Reading about these freak accidents reminds us of the profound fragility of life.
It does.
But zooming out to see the biological teardown scripts, the legal frameworks, and the complex disposal methods like permession, it reminds us of the incredible lengths human beings go to in order to document, understand, and ultimately manage the inevitable.
It is a massive testament to our resilience and our endless need to organize the dark.
Oh, Sud.
And there is one final provocative thought I want to leave everyone with. And it's actually inspired by a very specific detail at the very top of the source text.
Oh, you mean the banner warning from the editors?
Yes. Right at the top of the unusual deaths page, there's a disclaimer that reads, and I quote, "This is a dynamic list and may never be able to satisfy particular standards for completeness."
May never be able to satisfy.
Right. It is by definition, an eternally unfinished document.
Because history keeps happening, and people keep living.
And pushing boundaries and making mistakes.
So the question for you, the listener, to ponder today is this. Given our ever-evolving technology, our rapidly changing environments, and our endless, reckless human curiosity, will we ever reach a point of ultimate safety where the list of unusual deaths finally stops growing?
That's a good question.
Or does human ingenuity guarantee that as long as we exist, we will always find entirely new, unprecedented, and bizarre ways to exit the stage?